This just in, the Golden State Warriors lost yet again. Now they're below 500 on the season, 19-20 record. It's been a long hill that we've fallen down since the Warriors started 12-3, and they feel like they are in a hole that they can't dig themselves out of right now. We'll talk about the current state of the Golden State Warriors on today's show, but before we do, got a little bit of a challenge for Dub Nation. The most subscribers that we've gained on a video this month happened all the way on January 1st. Yeah, we got 87 then. Can we beat that on today's video? Got a challenge for you guys. If you're a die-hard Golden State Warriors fan, you're going to love what we have on the channel. Daily news and rumors, live shows, and more. Subscribe right now, and we'll get started with today's show. What's going on, Dub Nation? You're watching Warriors Today by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Tyler Smith, and on today's show, we're going to discuss the current state of the Dubs, man, because they are in disarray, things are disorganized, and I feel straight up disrespected as a fan of GSW. Well, let's talk about why we're here, right? Another loss on the column, and this time to the Toronto Raptors, up in the 6, losing 104-101. The Golden State Warriors had a chance to tie the game in the closing seconds. Steph Curry missed a big-time three. And then, next thing you know, Raptors get a big run out, and they get an easy bucket for 2. Warriors find themselves down 3. And in the closing seconds, with 3.6 left on the clock, they give the ball to Buddy Hield, who hooks up a 35-foot jumper in traffic and effectively seals the deal for another Golden State Warriors loss. This is disheartening, man, because this team is just not the same one that we saw through the first 15 games of the season. 7-17 over their last 24 games are your Golden State Warriors, and honestly, they've looked like a bottom-of-the-barrel organization during that time. If you look at where the Warriors stand in some key categories among the NBA, offensive rating straight up, you're 21st, bottom 10 in that category. Golden State has had the 26th ranked offense all the way since December 1st, and overall this season, it's just been a struggle to put the ball in the cup. True shooting percentage, which factors in effective field goal percentage, plus free throw shooting, which the Warriors are the worst in the league at. They have the 30th ranked free throw shooting percentage. They're 24th in true shooting percentage. They're not taking efficient shots, and honestly, when you watch this Golden State team, they don't take the ball to the rim a whole heck of a lot. They actually have the lowest 2-point field goal percentage in the league as well. Free throws attempted per game, they do not get to the free throw line. I just mentioned they have the 30th ranked percentage at about 71%. Well, they actually don't get to the line at all. They rank 27th in free throws attempted each night. Turnover percentage, they're sloppy, 14.5%. Like, this team doesn't take care of the basketball. It's middle of the pack, but when you already have trouble putting the ball in the basket in the half court enough, turnovers exasperate that big problem. And then the first quarter points per game. Remember when we talked about a couple of videos ago about how Steph and Steve Kerr discussed this team and how they're not really built to win when you have to come back over a big deficit there early on in the game. Well, they rank 26th in first quarter points per game. There's a reason for that. This team starts slow, and they cannot overcome it because they just don't have enough talent around Steph and Draymond, and not enough shot creation overall. So with that being said, Golden State has to look to improve this roster, and the only way, in my opinion, that they can get that done is by making a big-time trade, whether that be for somebody in the front court, whether that be for somebody on the wing that can complement Steph Curry in the scoring department. The Warriors are looking to make a trade, and they understand that this roster is not competitive enough to contend in the Western Conference in the twilight of Steph's career. They have been reported to be making trade calls out there via multiple NBA insiders. Golden State is making the effort to improve this roster. That opportunity just has yet to present itself so far since the beginning of this season, really. They had the opportunities in the summer. We'll talk about that as the video goes on. But at the end of the day, there's just not a real big trade possibility out there that is heating up for Golden State. Now, if there was, are you guys going to sit here and act like Steph and Draymond aren't in the discussions with the front office? They would 100% would be, and I feel like they have been throughout this whole process. I feel like Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Steve Kerr, Mike Dunleavy, they do talk to each other, and they do kind of have these kumbaya sessions where they discuss the current state of the team and that it's not good enough and they have to make something happen for these guys late in their career. But, that opportunity hasn't presented itself yet. Here's what Steph had to say about this kind of situation. He said, if there was a situation that made sense for our team, I'm pretty sure we know about it. That's how we've always operated. That's the expectation now until February 6th. So Steph is still holding out hope that there could possibly be a trade. And honestly, man, my whole take with this is the front office is not oblivious. They understand that this team isn't good enough. They also understand that they may have missed on some big time fish over the summer when they could have traded for Lauri Markkanen, when they could have traded for Paul George. I know maybe Paul George wouldn't have necessarily worked out with the way that he looks right now in Philadelphia, but I don't know if they're exactly utilizing him correctly. I think he could have been a wonder in Golden State. They decided not to go after Jimmy Butler, and now they find themselves with not a whole ton of trade candidates out there out there in the NBA. They kind of have to deal with the cards that they've dealt for themselves at this point in time. And the reason they didn't make those trades over the summer is because they put faith in a young core. They tried to operate on two timelines, and I just don't think that's been conducive to winning at any point in the NBA. They put faith in Jonathan Kuminga, and you know what? He was surging over the last 10 games or so. Now he's hurt for an extended period of time. We don't even know what his timetable on a return would be. Brandon Podziemski, he hasn't played in like what feels like a month now with the abdomen injury, and to be honest with you, like his production level was terrible to start the season. He looked like he regressed from his rookie year on the way to year two, and now he's not producing at all because he's not out there on the floor to begin with. Moses Moody, I mean, they put faith in him. They gave him $13 million a year annually on a new contract extension. Now he's playing 16.1 minutes per game. I'm pretty sure that is a career low since his rookie season. Buddy Hield, who they basically signed to replace Klay Thompson as the new catch-and-shoot threat. Well, he's shooting 30.4% from three-point range all the way back since December 1st. He has been abysmal since his hot start to the season. Then he put faith in DeAnthony Melton and Dennis Schroeder subsequently because DeAnthony Melton got hurt. So what do? You go out there and trade for Dennis Schroeder, who doesn't necessarily fit this Warriors mold. The front office has not exactly made the right moves, and they haven't pushed the right buttons, and they haven't compiled together a competitive enough roster for Steph to be contending in the Western Conference. And you know what? That's their fault at the end of the day. They have to live with the result. What do you guys think the Warriors' biggest mistake has been on this entire journey? Basically, since there were notions that Klay Thompson might be leaving the Golden State Warriors last season. What has been the Warriors' biggest mistake? Sound off from me in the comments section. My answer would be not moving further along in Lauri Markkanen trade talks. Could you guys imagine a 7-foot demigod player in this Golden State Warriors lineup right now, spreading the floor for Steph, always being that safety valve out above the break if Steph wants to drive or another player on this team wants to drive, the defense gravitates towards the paint, and you have a 7-footer who shoots 40% from three there waiting for you wide open at the top of the key. That would be my biggest gripe with this front office, is that they honestly, in my opinion, underrated Lauri Markkanen and overrated a guy like Brandon Podziemski, who they were not willing to discuss once they got on the phone with Danny Ainge and the Utah Jazz. And at this point, now that you missed out on that guy, like there's not one player out there that you can make a trade for, and this team totally transforms into an instant contender, right? Kevin Durant, like that was the guy I was kind of mulling over whether or not he can make Golden State a contender or not. But at the end of the day, there's a slim chance that he could even be discussed as a possible trade candidate from the Phoenix Suns, and there's an even slimmer chance that Golden State could go out there and get the deal done. So Giannis isn't available, Tatum's not available, Luka's not available, Embiid's not available. All these top 10 guys are not available at this point, and that's the only level of player that I think can make Golden State into an instant contender. And Steve Kerr said, though, that doesn't change anything for Golden State. They're still going to try and compete, and they're still going to try and make a deal happen. He said you have to be realistic organizationally about where you are. And you have to mind that, keep in mind what's going on in the future. I probably won't be around. Kind of a smug answer there from Steve Kerr, if you ask me. But I would tell you, if this organization gave away the next 6 or 7 drafts for a wild swing, that would be the most irresponsible thing they could do. Irresponsible. That's a funny word for Steve Kerr to use there. What's irresponsible to me is the front office's inaction to begin with. The fact that they didn't go out there and get help when the help was out there to go out there and acquire. Like, there's nobody that Golden State can go out there and instantly change their course for the rest of the season on. Like, Nikola Vucevic isn't going to save the world if you're a Golden State Warriors fan. But at the end of the day, that's the reality that Golden State's in now. They have to look at a possible, lesser option now than they could have had over the summer with Lauri Markkanen or Paul George. And they'll, trade for that guy and probably win 3 or 4 extra games, and they'll still be in the play-in tournament if we're lucky. Keep in mind, Golden State's now in 12th place in the Western Conference. They are not in a good space whatsoever. Coming up next, though, Steph and Draymond kind of talk about the current state of the Warriors and what a trade possibility could kind of look like. Plus, on the back, to round out today's show, we actually have some injury news in Golden State that could affect the timeline of a trade happening. We'll talk about that in just a moment, but first I got to give a major shout out to today's sponsor, and that is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports platform with over 10 million active members, including yours truly. I was a customer even before they were a sponsor here at Chat Sports because it's so fun and so easy to win real money in real time watching your favorite sports. And you guys can get hooked up with a free $50 in your account when you sign up and use our promo code CLNS and place your first $5 entry. Now, you might be asking me, Tyler, how do you even place an entry on Prize Picks? Super simple. All you guys got to do is pick a lineup of 2 to 6 player stat projections and just pick more or less on those projections. Here, I got you guys an example for this week's big football games. Here we go. Playoffs are here, and I got Prize Picks to make it happen. How about Patrick Mahomes more than 250.5 passing yards? Stars come out to play when the lights are the brightest, and Mahomes is no exception. Give me more on that. And followed by a more of Derrick Henry rushing yards. Give me more than 96.5 for King Henry against a pretty mediocre Buffalo run defense, if you might ask me. And then Josh Allen, more than 1.5 passing touchdowns. This is a battle of MVP contenders, and I think Allen is going to step up to the plate and ball out. So give me more than 1.5 touchdowns there. You can fade my picks. You can take my picks. Just make sure you go and do it at Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use that promo code CLNS for $50 instantly when you place your first $5 entry. You don't even have to win to receive the $50. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, well, Steph and Draymond obviously have some thoughts about this, and what I mentioned before is that they are constantly talking with the front office about what the current situation is for Golden State and where they should move from where they're at right now. But before we get into their exact comments, I want to give a quick shout out to Steph, honestly, because with the way that this Golden State team has been resulting, whether it's win or lose their basketball games for about the past month, Steph has not fallen off one bit. He's still playing like a top 10, top 15 talent in the league night in and night out. Last night against the Raptors, poured in 26, 7, and 7. Elite efficiencies from the field, and he still continues to be that efficient player. 41% from deep, 24 points per game over the past 10. And, Steph has just been that safety valve that Golden State has had there in his entire career, right? Like, you can always count on Steph, even when these teams are throwing their athletic 21, 22-year-old defenders, throwing the kitchen sink at Steph nightly, he still shows up day in and day out. I just thought it was organizational malpractice. I think it was a straight-up disrespect to Stephen Curry that the Warriors didn't go out there and get additional scoring next to him. I know, Warriors fans have always been clamoring for a center, and they need somebody in the middle to be that rim deterrent and rebounder and all that good stuff. But at the end of the day, they needed another scorer next to Stephen Curry. Last year was an issue when Klay Thompson kind of fell off a cliff. This year it's an issue when you don't have Klay Thompson at all, and you didn't make any big-time additions to improve the points per game that he was putting up night in and night out for Golden State. What Steph has done for this organization, the loyalty that he's had for them, it's unmatched because I feel like with the quotes I'm about to read to you, like he's not afraid, or excuse me, he is and seems afraid to tell the truth and to tell it like it is about how this team sucks. He called the team mid a couple of weeks ago. I think he was holding back with that. And here's what he had to say about the current idea of a trade or how this roster improves whatsoever. So desperate trades or desperate moves that deplete the future. There is a responsibility on keeping the franchise in a good space long term and a good spot when it comes to where we leave this thing when we're done. Doesn't mean that you're not trying to get better. Doesn't mean that you're not active in any type of search. So obviously Steph kind of echoing similar comments to what Steve Kerr had earlier. But at the end of the day, what's the future for Golden State? Like, is there a future that has Jonathan Kuminga as one of the better players and one of the higher paid players in the roster? Like, think about it. If Steph leaves in 2027 or retires in 2027 when his contract is up, what's left in Golden State? It's a bunch of middling players, guys who are in their 5th, 6th, 7th year in the NBA now. If you're keeping Moses Moody around, if you're keeping Jonathan Kuminga, if you're keeping Trace Jackson Davis, if you're keeping Brandon Pajemski, like, you're not going to be the worst team in the NBA, but you're not going to be a playoff contender. And you're going to be basically leaving yourself in the worst spot possible. And Draymond honestly agrees with Steph. Here's what he had to say about the whole ordeal. So the beautiful part about being in the space that we're in, Steve Kerr, Steph Curry, and myself all disagree with mortgaging off the future of this organization, saying that we're going for it right now. Bad teams do that. Bad organizations do that. We're not one of them. I mean, Draymond. This was after a win, by the way. This was not after last night's game. So, to be fair, Draymond was kind of feeling nice about the current state of the Warriors because it's a day-to-day league. It's a wins and losses league. But at the end of the day, I think Golden State is a bad team. And maybe Steve Kerr understands that as well. He agrees with Steph. He agrees with Draymond, the whole thing. So, we all agree that it would be really irresponsible to jeopardize the future and take a wild stab at something. I mean, Yeah, I think you do got to take a wild stab at something. To be quite honest with you, man, like I'm kind of tired of watching this current crop of Golden State Warriors play. Like, how many more losses have to stack up? How many more sub 35% 3-point shooting nights have to stack up before this team sacks up and makes a move? Like, there needs to be something that happens if you're Golden State. And back to Steph here, because I think this quote is really, really important. He says, nobody wants to be stale or be in a situation where you're passing up opportunities. Doesn't mean you're desperate, though. There's flinging assets all across the place just because you want to do something. Like, man, he is kind of speaking without saying the trigger words here, if you're talking about the Golden State Warriors, man. I think personally that he wanted Lauri Markkanen in the Bay Area. I think that he was saying to the organization there that this is a bad idea that you guys got stale and that you guys didn't do anything, because now look where we're at now. There's no viable trade option to kind of course correct things, and there's no options really out there to make Golden State an instant contender, because you're already you're 40 games into the season at this point. Season's half over. Like, Golden State's 500 and they're under 500 now. They're out of the play-in. Things do not look positive at all as far as the season's going. And like I said before, they're looking at the market, but what's really out there? What's going to fix things for Golden State? I'm not so sure. I do know that the comments from Steve Kerr a couple of games ago and talking about Quentin Post's performance and how he stretches the floor as a 5-man, that is something that could be, open things up a little bit for Golden State. And we keep talking about this guy. We'll talk about him again. Nikola Vucevic is a legit player that Golden State can go out there and help supplement their offense, help supplement their the rebounding and cleaning the glass angle of things. Like, he might not fit the textbook Golden State Warriors mold, but he can offer other things that would positively help this offense. Because whatever offense they're working with right now, it doesn't seem to work. Vucevic has a great back-to-the-basket game, got a great push shot, and he's shooting 42% from three-point range this season. So he'd be a magnificent pick-and-pop option for Golden State to have that they really don't have in their consistent rotation right now. Quentin Post isn't playing. And I say all this to say, like, Nikola Vucevic isn't going to make you contend in the Western Conference, but I do feel like making this move for a player of that stature is worth it. He's on a good $20 million a year contract. He's under team control for the next 2 seasons after this one. And with the current injury news that just came out from the Raptors game last night, now might be the time that you have to go out there and make a trade. Anthony Slater reporting that Trayce Jackson-Davis' right thumb and wrist area were really bothering him. Ended up having to go to the locker room because of it. Ended up coming back out to the Warriors bench. But this is something to monitor now, as Golden State's very thin in that front court. They haven't even been playing Kevon Looney lately in the lineup. So with TJD potentially maybe missing some games here, we don't know at the timetable on that yet, or if he'll play through it. Maybe the time to trade for Nikola Vucevic is now. Let me know down in the comments section. Be the GM for me. Should the Warriors trade for Nikola Vucevic or not? Type Y for yes, type N for no. I think this could be a pretty good addition for a Golden State front court that badly needs some scoring. We can talk about it more on Twitter, though. Hit me up at Smitty at CS. Got that account rolling, tweeting out Warrior stuff all the time, live tweeting games, always trying to engage in conversation with Dub Nation. And like I said at the top of today's show, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We just hit 71,000 subscribers right here on Go Warriors today. If you're a diehard Warriors fan, you're going to love what we got going on this channel. So hit that sub button. We'll see you in the next one. Let's go, Dubs.